My country, my pride. Welcome back to yet another episode where we're in the kingdom of Norway. My name is Tivumi Anas Benjamin Honor. This show is brought to you by Cable International Group. Let's tour the world together for all your visa assistance, paperwork arrangement, and hotel accommodations, bookings, airline, and much more. Consultants, find them on Namaswaki or Entebbe Highway, Kampala. You can all call them on plus 256 773 1375 66. Let's get to this episode.
West Coast. Meter ages. From about 1500 BC, bronze was gradually introduced. Burial cairns built close to the sea as far as North Husted and also inland in the south are characteristic of this period, with rock carving motifs that differ from those of the Stone Age, depicting ships resembling the Hot Spring Boat, while large stone burial monuments known as the stone ships were also erected. There is little archaeological evidence dating to the early Iron Age, which were the last 500 years BC. The dead were cremated and their graves contained little goods. During the first 4 centuries AD, the people of Norway were in contact with Roman-occupied Gaul. About 70 Roman bronze cauldrons, often used as burial urns, have been found. Contact with other countries further south brought a knowledge of ruins, the oldest known Norwegian runic inscription dates from the 3rd century of the Viking Age. By the time of the first historical records of Scandinavia, about 8th century, several small political entities existed in Norway. It has been estimated there are 9 petty realms in western Norway during the early Viking Age. On this basis, archaeologist Bergljot Solberg estimates that there would have been at least 20 in the whole country. In the Viking period, Norwegian Viking explorers discovered Iceland by accident in the 9th century when heading for the Faroe Islands, and eventually came across Vinland, known today as Newfoundland in Canada. The Vikings from Norway were most active in the northern and western British Isles and eastern North American Isles. According to tradition, Harold Fairhair unified them into one in 872 after the Battle of Hausford in Stavanger, thus becoming the first king of a united Norway. Harold's reign was mainly a South Norwegian coastal estate. Fairhair ruled with a strong hand, and according to the sagas, many Norwegians left the country to live in Iceland, the Faroe Islands, Greenland, and parts of Britain and Ireland. Haakon I the Good was Norway's first Christian king in the mid-10th century, though his attempt to introduce the religion was rejected. Norse traditions were repressed slowly by Christian ones in the late 10th and early 11th centuries. This is largely attributed to the missionary kings Olaf I Tryggvason and Olaf II Haraldsson. Saint Olaf Tryggvason conducted raids in England, including attacking London, arriving back in Norway in 995. Olaf landed in Mostar, where he built a church which became the first Christian church in Norway. From Mostar, Olaf sailed north to Trondheim, where he was proclaimed King of Norway by the Harthing in 995. One of the most important sources for the history of the 11th century Vikings is the treaty between the Icelanders and Olaf II, Hardsson, King of Norway, circa 1015 to 1028. Feudalism never really developed in Norway or Sweden as it did in the rest of Europe. However, the administration of government took on a very conservative feudal character. The Hanseatic League forced reality to cede to them greater and greater concessions over foreign trade and the economy because of the loans the Hansa had made to the royals and the large debt the kings were carrying. The League's monopolistic control over the economy of Norway put pressure on all classes, especially the peasantry, to the degree that no real burgher class existed in Norway. Let's look at the High Middle Ages. From 1040s to 1130, the country was at peace. In 1130, the Civil War era broke out on the basis of unclear succession laws which allowed the king's sons to rule jointly. The Archdiocese of Nidaros was created in 1152 and attempted to control the appointment of kings. The Church inevitably had to take sides in the conflicts. The wars ended in 1217 with the appointment of Hakon IV Hakonsson, who introduced clear laws of succession. From 1000 to 1300, the population increased from 150,000 to 400,000, resulting both in more land being cleared and the subdivision of farms.
For more than 10 years, Kevin International Group has been your number one partner in tours and travel consultancy. We also do real estate, legal services, ICT services, and much more. Find us on kebinternationalgroup.com or write to us at info@kebinternationalgroup.com. You may also write to us at PO Box 35827 Kampala, Uganda, or visit us on Namaswahi off Entebbe Highway. Call us on +256 200937566 or +256 3948632 or 46. Or you can send us a plus on WhatsApp on +256 752 1375 66. Cab International Group, your number one rail business partner.
While in the Viking Age, farmers owned their own land by 1300. 70% of the land was owned by the king, the church, or the aristocracy, and about 20% of yields went to these landowners. The 13th century saw Norway's golden age, marked by peace, increased trade with the British Islands, and rising German influence toward the century's end. Throughout the High Middle Ages, the king established Norway as a sovereign state with a central administration and local representatives. In 1349, the Black Death spread to Norway and within a year killed a third of the population. Later plagues reduced the population to half the starting point by 1400. Many communities were entirely wiped out, resulting in an abundance of land, allowing farmers to switch to more animal husbandry. The reduction in taxes weakened the king's position, and many aristocrats lost the basis for their surplus. The high tithes to church made it increasingly powerful, and the archbishop became a member of the Council of State. The Hanseatic League took control over Norwegian trade during the 14th century and established a trading center in Bergen. In 1380, Olaf Hansson inherited both the Norwegian as Olaf IV and Danish thrones as Olaf II, creating a union between the two countries. In 1397, under Margaret I, the Kalmar Union was created between the three Scandinavian countries. She waged war against the Germans, resulting in a trade blockade and higher taxation on Norwegian goods, which led to a rebellion. However, the Norwegian Council of State was too weak to pull out of the Union. Margaret pursued a centralizing policy, which inevitably favored Denmark because of its greater population. Margaret also granted trade privileges to the Hessianic merchants of Lubeck in Belgium in return for recognition of her rule, and this hurt the Norwegian economy. The Hanseatic merchants formed a state within a state in Belgium for generations. The Victor brothers launched three devastating pirate raids on the port, the last in 1427. Norway slipped ever more to the background under the Oldenburg dynasty. Established in 1448, there were no revolt under Knut Alvison in 1502. Norway took no part in the events which led to the Sweden's succession from the Kalmar Union in the 1520s. Let's look at the Kalmar Union. Upon the death of King Haakon V in 1319, Magnus Eriksson, at just 3 years old, inherited the throne as King Magnus the Seventh. The fourth. Simultaneously, movement to make Magnus King of Sweden proved successfully. He was a grandson of King Magnus Ladlas of Sweden, and both the kings of Sweden and of Denmark were elected to the throne by their respective nobles. Thus, Sweden and Norway were united under King Magnus IV. In 1349, the Black Death killed between 50% and 60% of Norway's population and led to a period of social and economic decline. Although the death rate was comparable with the rest of Europe, economic recovery took much longer because of the small scattered population. Even before the plague, the population was only about 500,000 people. After the plague, many farms lay idle while the population slowly increased. However, surviving farms lay idle while the population slowly increased. So these farm tenants found their bargaining positions with their landlords greatly strengthened.
It's been a pleasure to have you on My Country, My Pride. This show is brought to you by Chem International Group. We're getting to more episodes to internationalizing the nation of Norway. My name is Tivobi Ernest Benjamin with an honorary doctorate in humanity from Toronto, Canada. This show is brought to you by Chem International Group for those of you who want to tour the world together. And all the visa assistance, consultancy, air ticket, hotel bookings, and what you need to do, just call plus 256 773 1375 66. Let's get to another episode next time.